Hello and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. You know, I looked up the definition of anomalies the other day because we use that as our title on our show. What does that really mean? And what anomaly is something that's kind of out of the ordinary, something that's a twist and turn in society and in daily life. And I like to look at things that kind of fit that mold, the twists and turns in society. So I'm Dan Hall, one of your hosts. My other two compatriots, Gwen Farrell and Dave Jinks, are out doing other things. So I'm kind of the lone gunman today. Have a really good guest. I like repeat guests, people who want to come back on our show. And that's always really gratifying to me that they would do that. So today's guest is Nancy Myers. And Nancy's been on our show before talking about orbs. And I've convinced her to come back and talk about the relationship between orbs and UFOs. So, Nancy, welcome.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, you're always welcome to come back here. So, and this may be a little bit of a repeat for people that didn't hear the first show, but tell me about, first of all, your interest in orbs, how that happened, and then we'll connect that and the UFO phenomena. So
Sure.
take it away.
Okay. Well, I am an orb photographer, a medium, and a channel. So, how did that all start? Well, it started in 2010 for me with the sudden passing of my son, Robbie.
Out of here.
It was totally unexpected. It was 2 days before his 28th birthday. Um, I went to a medium about, maybe 8 months after his passing. I had never been to a medium before. I always believed in them, but I went for a reading and she said, "Oh, your son is here." And I said, "Oh, great." I didn't know how all that worked. And so she gave me some messages and some proof that it was him. And then she said, "Oh, Nancy, do you know what orbs are?" I don't know what are orbs. And she said, "Well, it's those lights that you capture in your pictures." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Well, that's going to be your work." She said, "Robbie's going to do that with you. He's going to help heal souls on that side, and you will help heal souls on this side." And I said, "Okay." So I am the very dutiful spiritual servants, and my son asked me to do this. So I got my camera and I started taking pictures. And lo and behold, they started appearing in the camera. But at first they were just these little gray spots, and I went, "Oh, that's cool." But I couldn't figure out, how is this going to help heal people? What? I don't understand. But anyway, so I just kept doing it. Well, then the orbs started to change. They started getting bigger. They started getting formations on the inside. Um,
Were you seeing faces? I think I
Not
remember.
in the beginning, not in the
Okay.
beginning. The beginning, they brought me along really slowly, Dan. The beginning, kind of the communication was just kind of through where they appeared in the photo and the color. Well, then the faces started. And when they started, only I could see them. So I would describe them to my client, and they go, "Yes, yes, that's my mom," or "Yes, yes, that's my dog," because I get animals too.
Almost cool.
hmm And, but now they're like, they almost look like pencil sketches. So I can show it to you. In fact, Portugal, I took some pictures of some people, and one of my friends lost her husband, and there he was, and I described him, and he was right next to her. So what does that do? Well, number one, it shows that we don't lose the connection
Right.
to our loved ones. The bond of love is never broken. And it's a physical thing that people can hold in their hand and see and look, because not everybody is medium. Not everybody has, special sight or spirit sight. And a lot of times, if you go to a medium and they'll say, "Oh, I see your mom standing next to you, and this is what she looks like." Well, you have to take the medium's word for it, right? But if I'm working with a medium and I take that picture as she's doing the reading, there will be mom in the
Hmm.
orb. So I had a medium from England tell me, she said, Nancy, do you realize that you do physical mediumship? That's like the new type of physical mediumship. And I went, yeah, I guess it is. So that's what I do. And now I can connect, I can give readings, by connecting with the orb and the person in the orb. And like I said, I get angels, I get guides, I get animals. I mean, I've gotten opossums, fish.
Really?
I've even gotten fish. Yeah. And rabbits and kittens and of course, our loved ones. So people will ask me, what are orbs? And basically, Dan, if I have to do it in one word or less, it's energy. We are energy. Everything in the
Okay.
universe is energy. And when we shed this physical suit, we revert back to what we truly are, our true essence. And that's energy. I asked my son, because sometimes I can talk to him, sometimes I have to go through a medium. And I'm not sure if this was Marty that told me. No, it wasn't. But anyway, I asked him, I said, Robbie, why do you go to a orb? Why do we present ourselves as orbs? And they're not flat, even though they look flat in the photo, they are a sphere, right? They're a globe. And he said, Mom, because it's the easiest or the most efficient form to travel between dimensions.
Hmm.
And I went, oh. So that's that's how I got started. That has been now my work. And all kinds of fun things have kind of branched off of that. So I know you want to talk about or have me talk about orbs and UFOs. And I do have some stories and
Okay.
some pictures to share with your audience.
I want to go back to something you said about who appears in the orbs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could get the loved ones because I always hear from mediums, oh, our loved ones are always around us. But animals, you
Mm-hmm.
said you saw the orb with a possum's
Mm-hmm.
face.
Mm-hmm.
Why would an animal that maybe isn't like our dog or our cat that we've had a relationship with, why would an animal be manifesting that way?
That's a great question. I was doing a demonstration, and when I do demonstrations, I usually do 20 or 30 people, and everybody gets a picture. And then I will go through each picture and describe what I see in the orb. So the lady was out there, and I said, I see a possum in this orb. And I said, he tells me that you rescued him and you
Ah,
saved his life.
ah,
And I said, did you? And she said, oh my God, yes.
oh my
So
God.
the possum came in to say thank you. So
Hmm.
there was that bond of love because he was
Amazing.
rescued. So,
Amazing story.
yeah, I know. That just gives me goosebumps every time I tell that story. But that's why he was there. My dog, I had a dog, her name was Spirit, and she was only 2 and she had cancer everywhere. So we had to release her. And I went out, and those of you who are into angel numbers, it was on April 11th, and it was at 10:44 at p.m. at night. I was out in the backyard taking pictures.
Now, why is that for those of us who aren't into angel numbers? Why is that significant?
Angel numbers, numerology,
Numerology.
they have meaning, so some people will say, well, I see 111 all the time. Well, that's kind of a wink from your angels that, hey, we're right here and you're on your path. My son sends me 333 when he wants to get my attention. 333 is also numbers of the ascended masters. And so it's a message. It's just another way to give us a message. Okay.
Okay.
But you can look up angel if you're drawn to a number. For instance, I was seeing the number 1234 constantly, or 234, or 345. That, you know, I'd wake up and look at the clock in the middle of the night and I'm going, Dan,
Yeah, you faded out there for just a minute.
can you? Okay, I'm gonna hold this. I don't know what happened.
You know,
Um,
the wonders of modern science, which aren't really so wonderful.
yeah. But anyway, so I kept waking up at that time, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I said, okay, what are you trying to tell me? And so you can go on Google and look up angel numbers and then enter the number that you're looking or seeing all the time. And there's some interpretations of that. And so mine was, okay, you're being moved up. You know, you're stepping up. Those are stepping stones. But anyway, so that's angel numbers. But anyway, so I was out in the backyard. So it was all about angels and love. And when I asked my dog Spirit, and I said, Spirit, I just need to know that you're happy. Just show me that you're happy. And this is on my website. And so I got a blue orb, and there she is in the orb. Not only can I see my white shepherd, but she's smiling.
Oh,
Because I asked, I said, please show me that you're happy.
happy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's, you know, the orbs are very responsive. You know, I tell people I take pictures every night. I just use a very cheap digital camera. The more expensive the camera, the more filters it has. Cell phones don't work. You know, they have too many filters, and I always leave my flash on. So that's how I take pictures, and I do it every night, but I invite the orbs in. I've built up a relationship with them. You know, so but that's my work, you know, so they show up. So yeah, that's you never know what you're going to get. You know, one time I had a reading and the medium told me, she goes, do you know you have a leprechaun for a guide?
Really?
And I go, that's what I said. Really? And she goes, yeah, and he wants to be called Lucky. And I said, okay.
Lucky the leprechaun.
Uh-huh. I said, well, that's a little stereotypical. But that night, I go out in my backyard and I take a picture, and there's an orb, and you can see the leprechaun with the pipe and the hat and his beard.
Really?
Yeah, it's on my website too. So, you know, I just never know who or what I'm going to get. One time I got it was a little later. I think it was a December evening, and I took a picture and I looked at it and I went, that's John Lennon. And I showed my husband. My husband is my litmus test. If he can see it, then I know everybody can see it. So I go, what do you see? As I showed him the orb, and he goes, that's John Lennon. I can see his glasses.
Oh my gosh.
And so I went, okay, why is John Lennon showing up in an orb, right? He showed up in an orb, Dan, on the day that he was murdered, within a minute of when he was murdered. So, you know, it was an anniversary, a special anniversary. I forget which one it was. Well, the whole world was thinking about him. So he was very prevalent in this dimension. And because I could capture him, you know, he appeared in the orb. So, yeah, I love what I do.
You know, this conversation, Nancy, is living proof that the world is a much more interesting and stranger place than most of us think. Most of us go through our life, you know, we go to Costco and we do this thing, play golf, whatever you're into, you know, kind of thing. But there's some really incredible, almost unbelievable things happening out there. And that's what kind of draws me to all this. You know, what's really going on versus what we're told is going on. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I am a former MUFON person, field investigator. I've talked to a whole bunch of people about things they've seen in the sky. And sometimes, you know, they're misidentifying the planet Venus for a UFO, but sometimes they're not. There's some very incredible UFO stories out there. And several of us are teaching a class this summer in Olympia Parks and Rec on the UFO phenomena.
Yeah.
So help connect us with orbs and UFOs.
I will do that. So I think your audience will probably be familiar with the ESETI Ranch.
They may. You might
yeah.
talk a little bit more about that.
Well, that is a place near where my friend Marty lives, and you've had Marty on your show, and Mount Adams, near Mount Adams in Washington. And there's a ranch called ESETI Ranch. I've forgotten the man's name who runs it.
It's
But you,
James Gilliland, I think,
thank you.
is the guy who owns it or runs it.
Yeah. So Marty and I decided we were going to go out there. You can go out, it's open. He lets it, people come and sit at night, and you look up at the mountain and it's a show. I mean, you can see one light after another. And so Marty, I was visiting Marty, and I said, hey, you're only a few half hour or so from that. Let's go out to ESETI Ranch. So we did. And we sat down, and, people, and this from your reports, when people see some UFOs, they report them as orbs. They're orb shaped, or they're orbs of light. So I went out there, and I'm going to try and share my screen here and get this picture up. Let me make sure there. Oops, nope, that's not the one. Let me go back. I want this one. Let's see. I'm trying to do this. Hell, I keep doing that. I don't know why that one's stuck on there.
Anyway, I've been to Gilliland's Ranch. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then a funny story, we got there, I didn't know what he looked like. And I had a question about, hold shift 2. I'm doing this. Let's see. Let's do this one. I'll try one more time. Nope, I can't do it. Oh, well. That the one that keeps coming up is the most important one anyway. But anyway, I took a picture of Mount Adams, and right at the peak, when we were sitting there, is this huge blue orb right at the peak. Unbelievable. And God darn it, I wish I could figure this out, Dan. I don't know how to get these other
Well, if you could describe it, that might be as good as we can do.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's but anyway, so we go back and I could see the orbs. You can see them flying around. We didn't see any fly into the mountain. The one picture that I have, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge orb because it's a huge mountain, and it kind of covers the peak. So we left after seeing that, and the next night, Marty and I decided that we were going to do Dr. Stephen Greer's protocol to call in the orbs.
Okay.
And
CE5.
Yeah, that's the CE5 protocol. And so Marty and I are sitting outside, and we do it. And now when Marty lives up there, and she has seen the orbs of light darting all over her property. She lives in a hot spot. But anyway, so I go and I take pictures, and there's all kinds of orbs all in the trees. Now, I don't see these with my eyes, but they're on my camera. And one of the ones that I took, I zoomed in, and it's not an orb. It's like kind of like a staple ship that I could see, and it was white. And so I'm pretty sure that I captured a UFO ship. Now, it's my understanding, and I've been told, that even though sometimes they appear as orbs of light and people watch them, all of a sudden they disappear. So they can they can cloak and uncloak, I guess, from our vision. So, but my camera picks them up for some reason, because I guess I get orbs. And, people ask me again, what are orbs? Well, I tell them they're our loved ones, pets, angels, and UFOs. So I don't know if because I'm tuned in to the orbs, that they can appear on my camera when most can't see them. It's just kind of an interesting phenomena. So I wanted to tell you just a little bit. When I started this journey, I never thought I would be connecting orbs with UFOs. I just, that to me didn't go together. But the more that I learn about it, and the more that I learn about where we are and what's happening here on Earth, it is connected. And I'll tell you this little story, because I always go, well, why me? Why me? So one time I'm going through the airport, and this is just a couple of years ago. And you know how you go through the X-ray scanner thing, and they pull me aside, and she goes, what do you have in your back? Did you have surgery or something in your back? And I go, no, I don't have anything in my back. And she goes, yes, you do. And I go, no, I don't. I would know. And she goes, well, look, it's right here. And I could see that there was this little tiny, bigger, smaller than a pen, kind of image, small rectangle image. And I go, I don't know what that is. So they did the wand and it didn't show up. Then coming back, I have to go through the same scanner and it's gone.
Wow.
So it's almost like, oops, they know that it's there now. Now I bring that up because people who have encounters with UFOs, I think they are followed through their lifetime, or because my grandmother, poor thing, she grew up at a time when the government really did a number on us, right? When you couldn't talk about UFOs and you would be made fun of. And she would buy the National Enquirer because they always talked about the UFOs. And she'd go, this is real. This is real. We go, okay, Grandma, whatever. But come to find out, she came into a reading, Dan, and she told me that she had encounters with UFOs. She told me that from the spirit world. She wanted me to know. And I think she wanted me to know because my connection that I didn't know I had yet. So now I'm going to fast forward.
So maybe a little point of clarification. Was she saying, obviously she was having maybe contact with ET or with the UFOs, but was she having contact with the ETs inside the UFOs?
I don't know. I don't, and a lot of people who have contact with the ETs don't remember it. But I think what she remembered is seeing something outside the windows, because she was absolutely petrified at night and would almost tape all the curtains. She didn't want any cracks in the windows to see in. She was petrified of what she might see outside. So I think she remembered seeing them, at least through the windows. But it's my understanding that generation after generation after generation have stories of this ET connection or this ET encounter. So, but I never really thought I had it until that X-ray thing, I'm going, well, what is that?
Was that an implant?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I'm
sure it
thinking.
was. Yeah. But and there's many stories out there like that, that people say, well, I don't have anything. And I'll just bring up my friend Marty again, because she's been followed by the ETs and had an implant, and she remembers being taken and waking up, and the ETs are around her, and they go, well, she knows it's there now. We have to take it out. So they removed it. But anyway, there's many, many stories like that. So I'm following my spiritual path, and I'm reading my books. And one of the books that fell into my lap is called, and I have it here, it's called Ra, the Law of One.
Hmm.
And I highly, highly recommend this book. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a sec. So I get a reading from this very, very good medium. And she's able to get in touch with your guides. And she said, oh, she goes, you have a guide here. And I said, okay. And she goes, he's blue. And I went, what? She said, yeah, he's blue. And I said, okay. Is the blue guy? And I'm thinking, oh, what is that? Blue Man Crew kind of guy, that's.
Or a Smurf or something.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I haven't even thought of the Smurf. And I said, well, does the blue guy have a name? And she said, yes, Ra.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, what? Now, to me, Ra meant two things. One was the book that I had just finished reading, Ra. And the other goes back to Egyptian times, right?
Right.
Ra is one of the oldest gods of Egypt. And I couldn't figure out why, that I would have this guide. But, Ra, if you are followers with Edgar Casey,
Hmm.
and he's the Sleeping Prophet. If you haven't read any of his books, I highly recommend those too. But he talks about his past life, as I don't think he was Ra, but he was with Ra. But anyway, so I'm thinking, okay, I don't understand how all this comes together. What is going on here? Well, when I was reading this book, it's a channeled book, and it came out, or the work was done in the 1970s. So there was a woman named Carla Rucker, I believe her last name is, and her friend Dawn, and they were doing these big meditations and everything. And their purpose was to contact the higher beings of the universe. Now, here's where I might be a little different than a lot of people, but I believe that many of the extraterrestrials are very, very advanced civilizations. Earth is the Milky Way is relatively young. The universe is 14 billion years old. Earth is 3 billion. So there's a lot of other parts of the universe that have been around a lot longer. So these advanced civilizations have attained, I believe, what we are after, which is enlightenment and ascension. And they don't travel in the physical. They act as one. They can read thoughts. They are benevolent. And there's more than one civilization. A lot of people say, well, who was here on Earth? Who built that? In fact, a lot of people say that the citizens of Atlantis were not fully physical. They were ethereal, which means, they were very highly advanced. So, and I said earlier, when we pass, we go to what we truly are, which is energy balls of light. So anyway, back to this book. So these people started this, and the book is wonderful. It walks you through. And all of a sudden one day, this being came in, and everything's recorded and written down. So I have an excerpt here, if I could read this for your audience. because I believe that it's important for us to know, Dan, very, very important for us to get over the fear of the grays and being dissected and fear and kidnapped, and because there's a whole nother confederation, if you will, happening out there. And they are the good ones, and they are the ones that want to help us. And we are supposed to be in contact with them. So this is what they said when they first, when this, because this entity said, I am not one, I am a group, I am a consciousness. So it says here, and I'm going to read it. We have been contacting people of planet Earth for many, many of your years. We have been contacting at intervals of thousands of years those who sought our aid, for those who sought our aid. It is time for many of the people of this planet to be contacted, for many now have the understanding and the desire to seek something, outside the physical illusion that has for so many years involved the thinking of those of this planet. The process we are stimulating is one which is self-generating. As more and more of these who desire our contact receive it and pass it on to others, then those who receive this passed on information will then themselves be able to reach a state of thinking and understanding sufficiently in time, shall I say, with our vibrations in order to receive our contact. So what they're talking about is there's enough people now working to raise their vibration to meet them where they are. You know, you've heard probably that we're in 3D moving to 5D, well, these are 7th, 8th, 9th dimensional creatures, and so because they are benevolent, because they understand that we are all one, that it is in their service to come and help us. That is my belief. And so there's another part here where they talk about, because we've all heard about the shift, right? What's going to happen at the end of the Mayan calendar or whatever, is Earth going to end? But they in this book, they talk about what they called the harvesting. It's like, okay, how are we going to move from 3D to 5D? And well, they're going to assist us, and they will assist the souls who are ready. So I read this book from cover to cover. In fact, I think there's 3 or 4 books in the whole series. But it's a message that you hear over and over again. So I went out one night and I took a picture. Now, I didn't know. I just knew that Ra was a consciousness, right? That's all I knew. I had no picture in my mind. Then my medium tells me, excuse me, that they're blue. So one night I go out and I do my usual orb pictures. And this is the one that keeps coming up. So I will share this one. Okay. So here is the orb, and you can see the face right here. And I went, oh my gosh, I wonder if that's my guide. So I did a little research on blue aliens. I didn't know where to start. And okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this now. But can you see the bird-like
Right.
features in the orb?
Characteristics. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I found online was this artist rendition of the beak and the dark eyes, and it was called the Blue Avian. And I went, well, that's interesting. Who are the Blue Avians? I had never heard of the Blue Avians. Had you? Do you know the Blue Avians?
I am clueless.
Okay, so they are not a single being, but a collective of consciousness that was This is, sorry, reading the wrong paragraph. There is a very advanced race called the blue avians. The blue avians are said to be blue-feathered human bodies with heads possessing bird-like features. They are a pacifist race who carry a message of peace and hope for humanity. Their intelligence goes beyond physical limitations, and they act as a single intelligent being or consciousness. Now, in the Law of One, Ra said to Carla, who was in a trance channeling, that they were not a single being, but a collective consciousness. So they act as one. That's why it's called the Law of One. So they have come again to help change the consciousness of humans to a higher vibration. That's what I just read. They are ascended beings residing in the 9th dimension, one of the highest forms. When not in physical form, it is said they travel in spherical devices. So not only did I capture a spherical device, but one of the blue avians appeared in that device. Now, are they, when you go back even to Egypt, because one of their gods was Ra, and you look at the inscriptions, or the images of their gods, who is it? It's Thoth and Ra. They are shown as human bodies with bird heads. And a lot of times, the paintings, the faces are blue. So did these beings come down many, many millennia ago and help kickstart civilization in Egypt? They're still trying to figure out who built the pyramids and why and how old they are, right? But I find it interesting that, who represents a god with a human body and a bird head? Where would they get that unless they're seeing that? So that, there's a lot of cultures that have, in Mexico, Quetzalcoatl, I can't say his name.
I know.
He's kind of a bird, that the Anunnaki, if you look at them, they have wings and feathers. And so were these benevolent beings helping humanity 10,000, 15,000? According to this channeled message that I just read, they come every so often when it's time. So that's what I believe some of the UFOs are. I don't believe, they're little green men from Mars. I believe that let's face it, if they can travel across the universe, they have to be doing it in ways that we cannot even conceive. We think of has to be a combustion engine, that takes them across, and it'll take 15 light years, to get to the end of the universe. These beings have mastered travel by just thought, but they do it. They still have to bring their energy body, so they do it in the form of an orb. And that's kind of what I think is the connection. To me, it brings great hope. It really brings great hope. Not that they're going to come down here and do it for us. That's not going to happen. Even in the book where they talk about, when they come and take the people who are ready, it's the people who have done the work. It's the people who have tried to live the law of one, basically, throughout all societies, throughout all cultures, throughout ancient civilizations. Do unto others as you would, the golden rule. Look out for one another, care for one another. That's what raises our vibration. It's not rocket science. It's all about It's all about love. And these beings want us to join the Confederation. You know, we're kind of here on Earth, we've messed things up, but we're kind of the black sheep, you know, and they're
Yeah.
waiting for us. They're waiting for us, you know, and they're hoping that we make the right decisions. And you know, I think we will. You know, there's a lot of evidence out there too, Dan, that you know, civilizations are very cyclical. You know, you talk about the great year, which is the precession of the equinox, which is every 24,000 years, you know, and we start in a bronze age and then we go up to a golden age and then we start to descend again. Well, we're just coming back up towards another golden age. So what is a golden age? I like to think of it as the time of kind of Atlantis and enlightenment and where we were technologically superior. And, you know, hopefully we'll reach that again. But when we fall or when this cycle ends, you know, there's three on record where pretty much civilizations have been wiped out. It's the Ice Age, the Dryas, and the Younger Dryas, I think they're called. And the Younger Dryas, which was the last one, was the Great Flood when all the glaciers melted and, you know, everything was wiped out. And then all of a sudden, when the water recedes, civilization is kickstarted all over the world at the exact same time. You know, how does that happen? But I mean, I'm sure we've had help, you know, and it's in the temples and the tombs. You know, people sometimes poo-poo the ancient alien thing. The show, I love that show because I see all the engravings and the beliefs and how many of the beliefs all over the world are the same. You know, they have these gods that have ascended from the sky to come down and help them, you know, and teach them agriculture and animal husbandry. And you know that we have more pyramids around the world than people realize. And so that had to come from somewhere because these civilizations were not talking to each other. You know, they didn't have phones. And so where did it come? How did that happen? Well, perhaps it was Ra. Perhaps it was the Blue Avians. And you know, they keep waiting for us. Oh, they missed it again. Now they're going to start in the next cycle, you know, and will that happen? Maybe. But what
Yeah.
happens to us if that happens? We go back to energy and we'll come back and do it again.
The second class, I guess, or the repeat class, we'll have to learn those lessons again. You know, one of the things that's discussed a lot in the UFO field is not all, or there are different kind of communities of belief. One community says most of the aliens or ETs visiting us are good, and then there are other folks out there say, no, you can't make that assumption. So, what's your response to that in terms of these ETs that you've been in contact with? We just lucked out to get some people or creatures that are interested in us, that are benevolent, versus some that want to treat us like lab rats and do experiments on us. And what do you say about that?
Well, I don't doubt the people that say they've had these horrible experiences. But what I question is whether, because you hear so many things, you know, we mentioned earlier Dr. Stephen Greer, and he's going to have this big, huge press conference on June 12th, where all these whistleblowers are going to come forward with all this information that's been withheld. And, you know, he says that, Dr. Greer says that, you know, there's a whole dark, I don't even want to say a government, but this organization that wants to keep up the fear of us with the UFOs. And so a lot of the abductions where they hurt people are really those people. Um, are there good and bad civilizations or out there? Sure. You know, you hear about the wars, you hear about um, um, with the Federation fighting off something else, and then they're doing these time wars, and I mean, there's a lot that's happening probably that we are totally unaware of. But light always wins, Dan. Light always wins. If those bad ETs really wanted to take over and do that, they would have done it a long time ago. Let's face it. Any uh, civilization or beings who are capable again of going through space, time, and traveling at great distances and has all this technology, they could have done it a long time ago. They could have, they've been visiting Earth for thousands of years.
Right.
We would have been robots by now if that's what they wanted us to be. But that's
What
not what the benevolent ones want us to be.
One thing I always refer to is, and when I do these classes on UFOs, is back in the '60s there was a study that came out from the Brookings Institute, and what they basically said is that you can't really tell the American public about the existence of UFOs and the existence of ETs because that would break too many taboos. People would start questioning religion. They'd
Yeah.
just start questioning this, that, and the other thing. So the investigation of UFOs never seems to go anywhere. But I think that it doesn't go anywhere because it's designed not to go anywhere. If you were to find out that there were ETs that have um, incredible sources of energy, what would the commercial interests on the planet Earth do with that? They'd want to keep that knowledge secret because that would be a threat to the product that they're selling everybody. So I wonder
Absolutely.
if there's not some kind of consistent government cover up going on about what we know about ETs.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just go back to one of my heroes who is Nikola Tesla. You know,
Okay.
and I've captured him in orbs twice.
Oh, cool.
But his research, of course, he tapped into the free energy that was available to the ancient Egyptians, and and he knew how to literally send electricity to everybody without wires, but no one can control that. No one can make money off of that, if we can
Right.
just do it out of the atmosphere. So his work was shut down and controlled. But again, that goes back, and that's what Dr. Stephen Greer is going to talk about on the 12th. He calls it the lost century, and it's all the technology that has been withheld or bought or hidden away. There's been a lot of people who have invented like anti-gravity things, and did additional work on Tesla's stuff. And these big companies come in, especially, fossil fuel companies, how are we going to make money off of that? So they pay off these people who invented them. Here's a check for 5 million. Person who invented it's happy, and they stuff it away and they keep making billions,
Mhm.
So is it out there? Yeah, it's out there. And of course they don't want us to have this information. And neither does religion.
Mm.
Because, it's just like you say, if we know that there are benevolent higher creatures, I have a friend, and we were talking about ETs, and he's and God bless him, that's his thing. He's a very religious, Bible religious kind of person, and he doesn't believe in the existence of other civilizations or beings in the universe. And I said, well, why do you think God made the universe so big? And he said, well, he wanted to impress us. I said, I
Okay.
don't, I don't think God has an ego, but
I don't
okay.
either, but
Yeah.
that guy does.
Yeah. But, some people are so locked in, Dan, to their beliefs, and they don't want to rock the boat. They don't
Right.
want to break down those walls and think beyond. Um, I tell people walking on a spiritual path isn't easy because you take responsibility for you. You
Mm.
don't turn anything over to someone else to tell you what to do, to tell you how to live, to tell you if you're forgiven. You do that work yourself. And it's a little harder, than just going to someone and saying, please forgive me, and okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a lot of people don't want to change the status quo. They want it to stay like that. Um,
Well, that's what the Brookings Institute study really said, is if you went down the rabbit hole of revealing that there were extraterrestrials out there, that things like religion
mhm,
would really kind of go out the window, because it would upset all these principles that we've had this moral foundation for. So very hesitant to do that.
absolutely. It wouldn't. I mean, and religion has suppressed. I just got back from Portugal where I was following the Knights Templar, and you find out we were in a place where the Inquisition, of the Catholic Church, and how they brutalized, the what they called the heretics, or the pagans, or and it's because they couldn't control that. Those people knew that they could be spiritual and reach God and pray to God, without a church. Well, they couldn't have that. So, it's a lot of it's about control and money, and unfortunately, but more and more people are going, wait a minute, this doesn't resonate with me. There's got to be
Mhm.
something more. And I'm not taking away, I hope, anybody who believes in that religion. Religion i- is great for a lot of people, and that's a stepping stone. And if that's what they're going to do in this lifetime, then that's great. But I believe that there's so much more.
Mhm.
And I think, when you start asking questions, um, and you start digging a little deeper, things, some things that we've been told just don't make sense, or they don't mesh, or
Right.
they don't feel right. And but yeah, it's
So maybe to summarize here, because we don't want to keep you the entire, you have other things to do besides talk to me the rest of the night. So the relationship between UFOs and orbs would be, how would you complete that sentence?
they are orbs.
They
They
are
can
orbs, yeah. They're
they
the
can
same
be
thing.
orbs.
Yeah.
It's their vehicle, it's their energy, and they'll show themselves when they are ready, or they will show themselves to people who are ready.
Mhm.
And yeah, so orbs are not just spiritual beings, although these are enlightened beings. Um, but yeah, it's and I don't know if you watch Skinwalker Ranch,
Oh, I do. I've got
Okay.
my shirt is actually a Skinwalker shirt.
Oh, there you go. Well, every time they see lights in the sky, and you can see this on TV now. What do they say? There's an orb of light. There's an
Mhm.
orb of light. So it's not just me saying that orbs can also be UFOs. It's on a
Right,
TV show,
right.
So yeah, orbs are many, many things. And
And the beings that you've been in contact with, or the beings that are in some of these orbs, they really have a higher purpose for humanity. And they want us to, you use the word ascension, they really want us to ascend it, if for no other reason to keep us from killing ourselves and the planet.
well, we're part of the universe, and so there's a little bit of a hole where we're supposed to be. I mean, they realize that we are all connected. We are all God's creator's children.
Right.
And so they're not going to leave us to our own devices. They will do what they can to help because they love us.
Well,
You
that's
know,
good.
and my work, Dan, whenever I do my work, I always say a little prayer that the work is from the highest good and for the highest good. And so if I capture my blue guide, my blue avian guide, then I believe that he comes from the highest good for the highest good.
It's great you made that connection. One final thing here. Now, talk a little bit more what's going to happen in June with Stephen Greer, because I'm kind of interested in that event and maybe how people can follow that.
Yeah, I think you can go to his website. It's called CE5, or just
Okay.
Google his name and it will come up.
Stephen Greer. Mhm.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Greer, Greer. And he's going to be at the National Press Club. He did one of these in 2010.
Right, I thought I remembered that.
But this time it'll be there. He's having a 2-day event beforehand, and then the press club release on the 12th. And you can go to the 2-day event virtually, and then I think the press event will stream live. But he's going to have all kinds of whistleblowers and documents. I think he said something like they're going to be releasing, I don't know how many, 80 terabytes of information and documents, people from contractors to the CIA, the NSA, NASA, military, all come forward with what they have witnessed, what they have seen, not just ET craft, ETs, but the technology that they have, what do they call that? Back engineered.
Yeah, reverse engineering.
Reverse engineered, So a lot of the crafts, I said earlier, a lot of the people's negative experiences, or some of the people's negative experiences, are really us. The ETs are telling us a lot of the ETs, the vehicles that you see now, the boomerang shape, the triangle shape, those are ours. They have had these crafts for decades, and they're anti-gravity. They don't run on fossil fuels, and they've withheld this from us. It would change the world. This technology would change the world, and that's scary for a lot of people. It really is.
So, Nancy, you do a podcast. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about that and how people can access that?
Oh, well, thank you, Nan. Yeah, it's called The Spheres of Spirit. My son gave me that name, and he told me I had to do this podcast. So I go, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what I do, when I got on this spiritual path, I found out that there was so many different spheres of walking, areas of walking a spiritual path. There's angels, there's mediumship, there's channeling, there's ETs, UFOs, so every podcast I'll pick one of the topics, but I always tie it into the orbs. I usually will have a picture that relates to the topic. And that airs on the second and fourth Thursday of every month on Om Times Radio, or you can go to my website, theorbconnection.com, and there's a tab with all my past shows. And
I see. That's where I've gone before. Now, do you have some books, right, too?
Oh, bless your heart. Yes, I do. I have 2 books. The one is called Entering the Light Fantastic, Discovering Life After Life Through Orbs. And my second book is called Encircled by the Light Fantastic, Deeper Journey into the Light with Orbs. So my first book, I never thought I'd be an author, but my son said, Mom, you're writing a book. And he's getting the biggest kick out of giving me all these assignments.
Sounds like your son is really influential in your life.
Yeah, he is. Well, I told him he better not ever not stay in contact, because I'll just dissolve into a puddle. But the first book, I put out, and I kind of tell everybody what happened and how it happened and how my spiritual path started. And when he wanted me to write my second book, he said, Mom, don't leave anything on the table. And I went, gulp, because there's some wild stories in there. I'll just say that. So if you want a little bit more woo-woo, then go ahead and read the second book.
And you can get these on Amazon or
Yeah.
Any other place?
Yeah,
where-
there's Amazon, no, really, that's all. I don't have them on any, I have them on a few other little sites, but there's also the ebooks that you can order.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Nancy Myers, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Maybe we could convince you, nudge you to come back and talk about the Knights Templar. That sounds like an interesting kind of conversation to have. But thank you so much for being on our show, and the best of luck to you. And it's good to know you.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate you having me on, and I will. I look forward to next time.
Okay, come back anytime. Take care, Nancy.
Okay, bye-bye.